Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brian O'Haron. This is December 18th, 2008. Tonight I felt I needed a little extra help, so once again I have my founders with me. They're not up in the back of me because we still have a little technical difficulty here that they're working on. Probably be ready for my next program after New Year's in January of 2009. These founders, they give me a lot of help because they started this town, they built this town, they went through a lot of ups and downs, and we are now going through some ups and downs. The economy will be pretty bad, national and local and state and worldwide for quite a while, and we all think about this all the time. Even though it might not affect us personally, and it does affect most people personally one way or the other, we do worry about our children's future. We do worry about our grandchildren's future and all of our relatives, either the aged, who is a difficult time for them as well. So we think of everybody in these times, and I encourage everybody to do the same. We are our brother's keeper, you know, and we all have to be concerned about everybody else. And I always say up the lake, when somebody does something that you don't like, instead of going and turning them in downtown, go try to help them fix it so it's everybody wins. We need to do more of that, especially in these hard times. Now, I will be off on December, for the next program will be Christmas Day on a Thursday, and then we'll have January 1st on a Thursday, so I won't be back till January 8th, 2009, and that's going to be an interesting 6 months for me because, you know, we'll have the finish of the 2008 2009 budget, I hope. Never guarantee that, but we'll see. There'll be the next budget, 2009-2010 budget has to be to the selectmen by March 15th, 2009. That's not very far away. And then the next local election will be next year. And one of the reasons I kept this programming going was to hope that I could get enough information out to the voters. And remember, 3,700 of the 7,000 voters are unaffiliated voters. So these unaffiliated voters really control the key to the future of this town. So they coupled with either their Republican friends or their Democratic friends or their independent friends, will have the greatest influence on this election as they do also in the national election. So this program's really trying to get out to the unaffiliated people and to the Republicans, to the independents, and to the Democrats. I haven't had much luck with the Democrats, but we're going to keep trying here as long as we can. And we do have a major philosophical differences on things, one of which is the need for the revenue in town as soon as practical for the developments down the corridor, enterprise corridor. The other is the large bond issue, the huge bond issue that they were proposing before they ran for the last election. So having said that, let's all help each other out. Let's get through this next couple of years and hopefully things will be better. What we are now is we're lifting weights and we're doing everything as a country to be in shape for getting out of this recession. So we must always remember that the Town of Winchester Charter, and I have a copy here with me tonight, states on page 5 that the legislative body of the town shall be a combination of a town meeting and a board of selectmen. I'll repeat that. The charter says on page 5 that the legislative body of the town shall be a combination of a town meeting and a board of selectmen. Each body shall have the powers as the charter prescribes. So if you get the charter, take a look at it, page 5, you'll be able to read that for yourself. Then you can go to those actions where it states what these charter does prescribe for each of these groups. The relationship between the two groups is not very effective or trusting at the present time. If I said for a year and even before that, it's not very effective or trusting. And if you want to see an effective and trusting relationship, then not one that doesn't have problems and things, but the way they deal with each other, which is going to be the subject of my program tonight, how we deal with each other, you'll find that other towns do have better working relationships throughout their town than we do. So we have a long way to go. We have a lot of sniping, backbiting, arguing, dirty looks, all kinds of things here, letters to the editor and all that, and stone throwing. We have, you name it, we've got it. So we have to work on that. And I've talked about all this in the past. This is not new, what I'm going to be doing tonight. But it's a good time to do it during the budget season, around the holidays when not much is going on in town except for the budgets. There's some time here to work on this kind of thing. So the relationship between the two groups is not very effective or trusting at the present time, the two groups being the Board of Selectmen and the town meeting representatives, which is us, the taxpayers. Partly because of the lack of positive working relationship. We don't have a positive working relationship. Partly because of a lack of experience. We have, as I always said on this program, you've got people who only have educational experience. In the Board of Selectmen, you have one person, I don't even know what his experience is, but I don't know. So there's a communication problem there. And then you've got the businessmen who have a different background, a different lifestyle, and everything else. So there's a real problem in communicating here. And I always say it's like going to Italy without speaking Italian or speaking very little Italian. Now, in some cases, people can go to Italy, and if they know French, they can understand a lot of the Italian, and they can communicate with Italians, but not as good as if they knew Italian. And if they go to Spain, or if they know Spanish and they go to Italy, they can communicate with these people in Italy, but not as good as if they spoke Italian. Now, in Scandinavia, each of the Scandinavian countries speaks in its own language, and the other recipients of this information listen in their language, and they have enough commonality between these languages. They're not the same by any means in the Scandinavian countries, so they can at least understand each other and they can work together, but not as good as if they all spoke a common language. And what the common language is becoming around the world, partly because of the computer industry and lately the internet, is English. So if you go around the business world anywhere in the world, we should watch it on TV when they get these people on, most people now speak English. That makes it a lot easier to communicate. But as you know, we still got problems because even though we can communicate in English with people, we still have, bombings and, all kinds of problems and worldwide. And it's not easy to work together worldwide as one team. And everybody's working on that, but that probably won't happen in my lifetime. And the other thing is communication skills. Some people have the worst communication skills. When you watch these selectmen meetings, you look and see, and there's always a snide remark, or there's a funny look, or there's an accusation of some sort, and that has got to be eliminated. And I'll talk a bit more, I hope, about that this evening. And partly because of politics. Politics. Remember, we had all the meetings I showed you from Torrington, the interviews I did with their council men and women. They try to leave politics out of their meetings once they get elected, and then they bring out the politics when it's time for the next election. And between elections, they try to work as a team and get along together. And if you attend any of their meetings down there, as I said many times, you'll see that. So the politics of various groups plays a large role. And of course, the politicians have some of them have a set of cheerleaders that write letters and show up for meetings to vote and stuff like that. And that's to be expected in a democracy. But my whole view is that this relationship can and must be improved. We must do that this year. We're making some progress, but we got a long way to go. Tonight I will present, once again, my thoughts on some ways to improve the relationship between these two groups. Just my view. Doesn't mean anybody's going to do these things I recommend or mention. They worked for me in the past all over the world. I've had teams that no two persons spoke the same language. They all spoke a little bit of English. They were learning Pidgin English. So we did get along together, and we had a lot in common, despite the fact that it was difficult to communicate. And by the way, the international language of the computer industry is English. So they all read English manuals and English directions and all that kind of thing. So that provides some sort of a common denominator. I even did that 30, 40 years ago. It was the same way. And that's because basically between Americans and English, we invented the computer industry. So it hasn't worked for me to date here. I don't even know if I'm making any progress, but I hope it helps in the future. The budget has failed again for the 5th time, the proposed 2008-2009 budget, by a very small margin, about 52 votes, or a 26-vote swing. So if 26 of the voters had voted the opposite way, rather voted yes rather than no, then you know we would have had voted no rather than yes, and would have had a no vote again. I mean 26 votes. We'd have had a yes vote instead of a no vote, but we had a no vote by 52, difference of 52 votes. The answers to the questions requested by the town manager, which was great stuff in my opinion, I want to talk a bit about that tonight. The questions were very helpful, as many of the voters responded, giving the selectmen some meaningful input for determining the direction of the 6th proposed budget for 2008 and 2009. The selectmen have already unanimously taken action based on the referendum. Talk a bit about that this evening. Based on the referendum results and a recommendation by the town manager and some of his staff. It is my belief that at least in this town, the one I'm most familiar with, the questions asked would have been very helpful if they were on the first ballot and each succeeding ballot in this series of 2008-2009 budget referendums. That way we could have stayed on the right track and would have been less likely to increase or decrease either side of the budget when the voters wanted us to do the opposite, hopefully leading to a need for less referendums. We're going to have to live now with this form of charter. We voted down the possible mayoral form, and that's okay. Everybody spoke, and that's in our past. Well, now we got to make this form work. And guess what? As I've always said, teamwork is necessary, and the CEO is the town manager. You may see a picture of him once or twice tonight again for the 3rd week in a row, because he's the pivotal person in this whole thing, and he's got to pull it all together and make it work. And I think I have confidence in him. I'm pretty sure he'll do it if we're left in the job long enough. If we have a change in the Board of Selectmen to an opposite approach in theory, then it's questionable whether or not we will still have the same town manager. I'm hoping we do. And I say, when these people run for office this year, ask them what they're going to do with the town manager. Are they going to keep him, or are they going to eject him? And if they say they're going to eject the town manager, then don't vote for him. We need to have, even if the town manager isn't the best in the world, and I'm not saying anybody's the best in the world, better to have consistency and give the guy time to do the job and build up the teamwork and get us out of the pickle we're in right now. So if we had these questions on every ballot and each succeeding ballot, every ballot in this series of 2008-2009 budget referendums, that way we could have stayed on the right track and would have been less likely to increase or decrease either side of the budget when the voters wanted us to do the opposite. Now, in one case, we knocked down the education budget, then we built it back up again. In another case, we knocked down the town budget, then we built that back up again. And we didn't really know what we were doing because we didn't have these questions. We didn't have it. Now, I know some people don't think the questions do a lot of good, but my view is something's better than nothing. So sitting back, speculating, using a crystal ball, or talking to various minorities and or special interest is more likely to cause multiple referendums and more confusion and inefficiency running the business than a more structured, orderly working approach throughout the year and especially during the budgeting process. Now, last week I talked for a whole time about the way I structured ICL to be able to get to the satisfied customers and find out exactly what the facts were, the whole approach to that, and and then to be able to resolve the problems in an extremely rapid manner, relatively speaking, and then try to set up another process, the blue border approach, to try to ensure that we don't have that problem again. The fifth proposed budget referendum for 2008-2009 was held on December 13, 2008, at the Pearson School. Amid some controversy, we don't do anything without controversy, concerning the simultaneously scheduled student band concert and student art exhibit. See the rerun of the December 15, 2008 Selectmen meeting on Saturday morning, Channel 13, Charter Cablevision, at 9 a.m. for comments concerning this issue by concerned member of the public. I'm not saying whether the fellow's right or wrong. He just did make some comments. The newspaper's been full of it this week. But the internet's been a lot of emails flying around the internet about this issue as well. But and if you don't have Charter and you can't do it, you can come down to Charter, and I think it's $15. You can buy a copy of the Selectmen meeting for December 13, 2008. The turnout for the vote was not too great, once again. 1,306 voters of an eligible 7,122 eligible voters turned up. So 1,306 turned up out of an eligible 7,122. Now tonight, in a few more minutes, I'm going to show you some of the history of these budget referendums and how many times they had to have them repeated and how many people showed up for each one, and what the total, in most cases, what the total number of eligible people were for that year. I got that information from Cheryl Carrier and Sheila down at the town hall in the town clerk's office. They were very helpful, and I thank them for helping me get all this information pretty rapidly this week. The one thing I don't have on it is whether or not the budget was what the actual budget result was, whether it's 0, 1%, 2%. We didn't do that research this week. Maybe in the future we can do that. It takes a lot of time for these people down there to do this research, and I thank them very much for that. So the question results were informative and seemed to be of help. Question number 1, the town budget. 494 voters said it was too low. 664 voters said it was too high. That's a difference of 170 votes. And it was a total of 1,158 votes for that question out of the 1,306 voters. So you come pretty close there. Not bad. There were 1,306 voters, and 1,158 voted on that question. So I think that was pretty good. Question 2 was about the education budget. Was the education budget too low? 500 said yes, it was. Was it too high? 703 said that it was too high. That was a difference of 203 votes. And for that one, 1,203 people voted out of the 1,306 that voted in the election. So that was very, very good about the education budgets. But guess what? Most people thought it was too high, and if we had this information for each one of these, we would probably got this thing over with much quicker. But there's other things we need to do too to be able to work together for that. That's the only thing. So I'm suggesting to the town manager, and I'll write him an email, he doesn't have to agree with me, that we have these kind of questions on every ballot, including the 6th ballot for the 2008-2009 budget. So what I want to show you here is the agenda tonight, and then we'll go on from there. The agenda on December 18th, 2008 will be my comments, which I've made already. The 5th 2008-2009 proposed budget referendum result, which was basically they turned the budget down, the proposed budget down for the 5th time, and they answered those questions as I just told you. And the questions both said, let's get both the town side and the education side down, lower than they are now. Doesn't say how low, but it did say they thought they were too high, and that's why they voted no. The next will be the sixth proposed 2008-2009 budget, town meeting. Then I'll talk a bit, not much, because there's not much progress, but I'll talk a bit about the enterprise corridor progress, and then I will spend time talking about my kind of way of improving this communications, and I call that communicating for success, which every businessman must do if they're going to be successful. There's no businessman who can't communicate with their customers. There's no customers who can't communicate with their business. If they can't, then they have to get it. Somebody else will be supplying them the services. One of the arguments we used to have about the phone companies in the old days when they were when there wasn't as much competition here as today, is you ordered a phone, it took you weeks and months to get one, because nowadays you can buy it in a store and use it within an hour, half an hour. So we need to talk about that here today, and I'm going to make one more attempt, and I'll probably make several more before the end of the programs and around the election time next year. I'll do my best. But that's what the agenda is. So now I'm going to show you the history here of the 2008-2009 budget, and there are 7,122 voters. It changes a little from month to month as new people add up, but it went up to 7,000 because of the national election. A lot of people flooded in to sign up to vote, so it went from the 6,000s to the 7,000s now. And now the first one was 1,685 people showed up to vote. They voted the budget down without any questions, no reasons. Number two, there was 1,258 voters showed up. They voted the budget down. Number three, 1,284 voters showed up. They voted the budget down. Number three, 1,284. Number four, 1,777. They voted the budget down. And number five, 1,306, a little more than the second one, at least, and third one, but not much more. And they voted the budget down, but this time we had the two questions that the town manager put together, and they gave us some very good answers, as I told you. Now we will have the next budget meeting. I'll show you later what the date is and everything, but there's going to be another one. I don't know how many voters will show up there, so I put a question mark, but we'll watch this, and I'll keep you posted after the next town budget referendum. We have the town budget meeting first. Remember, that's the symbiotic relationship between, according to the charter, that we're supposed to have between the selectmen and the town meeting for legislative power. Now, just to give you some of the history here, 1994, these are voted, these are eligible to vote. In some cases, they don't have the numbers. In some cases, they may be wrong. I'm not saying this is 100%, but it's the best we could do with the information that was available in the town hall in the records. And it takes time to go through those, and Cheryl did most of this work, and I thank her again for that. So in 1994, they had 4 referendums. The first one, there was about 6,263, plus a little here and minus a little, for each referendum. So in 1994, the first referendum was 1,504 voted out of an eligible 6,263. And the second referendum, the budget was voted down. The second referendum, 1,775 voted out of 6,320. Number 3, I was voted down. Number 3, 1,672 voted out of 6,322. And the fourth one, which passed finally, 1,120 voters voted out of eligible 6,246. So 1994 was not a smooth year for approving a budget. 1995, well, here we've had 5 referendums, and I'll go through it quickly. 1,400 voted out of 5,659. 2,291 on the second referendum out of the 6,246. That jumped up quite a bit there, and I don't have any reason for that. There might be a mistake, but that's the best we could do, the information I got. But that vote was down. And then the third one, that referendum, 1,647 out of 6289, that was voted down. Number 4th referendum, 1965 out of 6294 eligible, that was voted down. And the last one must have been a zero budget or something. I don't know when the last zero budget was, but it was 839 people showed up out of 6,319, and the budget was passed. Those of you that were here in 94 and 95 remember all this. But up we come now with another 4 referendum budget. 1996, 1,022 out of 6,394. Second referendum, 2,047 out of 6,444. Budget voted down both times there. The next one was 2,049 voters out of 6,522. And the last one, I couldn't find the number eligible. Well, let's assume it's 6,522 or in that neck of the woods. Or notice it went up each time here, so maybe this would be 6,600 and something. But 3,303 voted up, and they voted yes. They showed up out of the. This is the highest one we've seen so far. So we've gone through 3 years, and we've already had 4, 8, 12, 13 referendums to get a budget passed. 1997, I don't know what happened in 1977, but the budget was adopted not at a referendum, or at the time, the town meeting and referendum must have been the same meeting, but it was adopted at the annual town meeting. And I don't have any numbers for that, nor does the town in the records we looked at. They may be somewhere else in some other records. 1998, the budget was adopted one time at the annual town meeting. 661 voted in that election in 1998. And I can't believe there weren't, there was probably about 6,500 or 600 voters. So you only got 661 showed up. Once in a while I hear the mayor say, I'm absolutely amazed at how few people show up for these elections. Well, here we had a lot show up in these 3 years, and then we got it adopted pretty quickly here in one try, and here we only had 661 voted according to the records. In 1999, the budget was also adopted at the annual town meeting. 686 voted out of roughly 6,500 voters. And the records, again, don't show how many people were eligible here in these years, so it's a little tough. And then in the year 2000, the budget passed at the annual town meeting with 365 people voting out of 6,000 something. So quite interesting. And then 2001, the budget adopted at the annual meeting, first try, 301 voters voted. Isn't that interesting? So maybe it was, I don't know why, I don't know all the history here, but it's interesting. If anybody does know the history, corner me sometime and give me an idea what it all, and I'll be fishing around trying to find out what happened in those years. But 2002, there were 2 referendums. 1,716 showed up out of 6,808 to vote the budget down. And then the second one, they passed it. 1,650 showed up out of 6,856. 2003, there were 3 referendums. The first 2 failed, of course. 1,968 showed up to vote out of 6,584. The next year was 2,928 out of 6,610. And the third referendum was 2,320 out of 6,550. 2004, we had 7 referendums. I put dittos here because they didn't have the correct information, the right information here, so I just assumed it was always about 6520. But this was this was the famous 7 referendum year, 2004, and the numbers here were 1,958, 2,073, 2,668, 2,067, and 1,512. And then we got to the 6th referendum. All these are no votes here. And then we get to the 6th referendum. That was 1,915. And then the 7th referendum, which finally passed the budget, was 1,743. So it was a year similar to this year as far as the number of referendums are concerned. In 2005, I don't know how many eligible voters there were. I didn't have that record, but 2,230 showed up at the referendum and passed in the first referendum. 2006, back we went to 3 referendums. 854 showed up out of a roughly 6,500 or so. They didn't have that number, so because these are 6,007, I figured it's got to be at least 6,500. It might be more. And then 1,341 and 1,251. Then when we get to 207, we get 997, and I don't know how many eligible ones were there at that time. And of course, you know what's going on in 2008. So 2008 so far, we're going on our 6th annual town budget meeting and our 6th referendum. Now, in the last referendum, we had a no vote. It was on December 13th, 2008. I already showed you the statistics for that. Once we got the questions answered, and I already talked to you about those statistics, the town manager sat down with his staff, talked to various selectmen, do whatever he has to do, because he's the CEO of the town, and you'll see his picture up here once in a while, from now on, I hope, instead of the founders. But across-the-board reductions to achieve 0 were decided upon at the selectmen meeting on the 15th, this past Monday. And the selectmen decided unanimously to take 1.56% across the board out of the budget. So that means both the town and the education group will have to reduce their budgets by 1.56%. They didn't go into individual how to reduce the budgets. They just said, look, your budgets have to go down by 1.56%. You, the town, and you, the education, Board of Education. The town and debt was reduced by $136,856. That's how much town is going to try to reduce the town budget and including the debt. The education budget, it was cut by $319,476. So the total cut necessary to get to a 0 budget, which they decided to do on December 15th at the Board of Selectmen meeting, they need to eliminate $456,331 worth of spending. And they have to go now to their managers within each group, and they have to decide how they're going to do that. There were suggestions made by the people at the meeting. You can see that on Saturday morning in the public comment sections of the meeting, what the suggestions were, but there were various suggestions made, the most outstanding, which is to have across the board budget cut that affects everybody and not to slaughter anybody. So that was it. And then other people suggested that perhaps they hold back on all raises for this year, 2008, 2009. That's a little tricky because you have to deal with the unions on that. But ways were suggested to do that. May or may not happen. But anyway, we'll keep you posted. The thing. So the next town budget meeting, it will be at 7 p.m. Saturday, January, I think it's Saturday, I'm not sure, January 5th, 2009. This Saturday may be wrong. I know it's January 5th, 2009. At the Gilbert School. So the first will be Thursday, second, third, fourth. It'll be a Tuesday, so forget that Saturday. It'll be a Tuesday, I think. Town budget meeting, 7 p.m., January 5th, Tuesday, at the Gilbert School. Sorry for that mistake. It was on Saturday last time, and I didn't change the side properly. A proposed tax increase will be 0 mills extra, or 0%. And the last referendum, the 5th referendum, was a 2.34% increase. And I forget exactly how many mills, 0.52 or something. So it's been decreased. So it'll be basically what the Taxpayer Association was asking for. It's going to be a 0 mill rate increase, 0%. This is the history, as I've been showing you from week to week, 0.58 in the last one, mills, and 2.34%. And now it's 0 mills, 0%. 1 mill, after the last revaluation, is now $816,900. Okay, now, as far as the enterprise corridor is concerned, The sewer and water people have been having working progress meetings. The meetings are progressing with the developer to plan the sewer and water down the corridor to the developments and down the corridor to the Torrington Town, near the Torrington Town line, so that we can have water and sewer down that enterprise corridor, which we need for all the reasons we've been talking about. Highland Ridge Estates and St. Anne's Country Club, their working meetings are proceeding with DEP and the Army Corps of Engineers. I think they had one about a week ago there, and that's working. I'm not spending much time on this tonight because not a lot of progress has been made. They are working on things, so that is progress. But the water and sewer meeting last night was canceled, so I didn't go to that, and because of the weather. And I don't go to the DEP and the Army Corps. That comes back through the system somehow. So town manager is interested in that. Okay, now communicating for success, which is what I want to talk a bit about tonight. And I've got some of my old. First, I want to read you a definition of communicating. So we'll leave this slide up while I read this to you. Communication is the process to impart information from a sender to a receiver with the use of a medium. Communication requires that all parties have an area of communicative commonality. That's why I question a little bit that in our town, that we have that. There are auditory means to communicate, such as speaking, singing, and sometimes tone of voice, and nonverbal physical means, such as body language, sign language, paralanguage, touch, eye contact, or the use of writing. Communication, by the way, the use of writing is interesting because we can all communicate with Einstein by reading anything he's written. It's a little hard to ask him questions about it, but we can do that. And we can also read people who commented on Einstein's writings and see what they think of it, get another point of view. Communication is designed as a process by which we assign and convey meaning in an attempt to create shared understanding, something we badly need. This process requires a vast repertoire of skills in intrapersonal, and interpersonal shared understanding. This process requires a vast repertoire of skills Use of this process is developmental and transfers to all areas of life. It transfers to home, school, community, work, and beyond. It is through communication that collaboration and cooperation occur. I now want to show you my normal distribution curve again. Normal distribution curve is, again, people in town fall out along this normal distribution curve, this being the right-hand side, this being the left-hand side, and this being all axes in the middle. And so we have a very wide variety of people in this town. We have a lot of people who are experts, like engineers, that it's hard for them to communicate with non-engineers unless they have excellent communication skills. And a lot of our board members are not engineers, and the commission members are not engineers. Yet they have to listen to engineers and then try to make a decision. So we have artists, we have teachers, we have businessmen, we have all kinds of things, and they all speak different languages. Right? There are some things that they share. They all speak in English, hopefully. Some more and more of that is coming back, and we still do have a lot of immigrants coming in that don't speak English, and one of the reasons why some of our costs in schools in America are a little more, because we have to get them up to speed. But anyway, that's how the people fall. So they're not all naturally speaking, have the same knowledge base. Okay. So when we go through a budget referendums like we have now, going on our 6th referendum, and one in the past, 2004, 7 referendums, we're not kind of going in the direction we're supposed to be going. And there's a reason for that, which I'm going to discuss here. We're kind of on this path here. For these are my triangles that I always put up for you. And we do a lot of spinning around in here trying to figure out how to get the selectmen and the town meeting in sync, so that the selectmen don't go to a town meeting with a budget that is, you know, much, much, much more than the town meeting wants. And the town meeting doesn't ask for such an unrealistic budget that the town can't survive. So what we need to do is move from going in this form here to going into this form here, where down here we achieve it. Now, my view is, if we have a good team working relationship, and I've said this all along for the last few years that I've been around here talking about this stuff, I even get kidded about it now by some of the participants in the town leadership, that it's the preparation up in here that allows you to get a budget through on the first pass. The less preparation you have between the two groups, the more referendums it takes. So my intention would be for the next year, which is going to be a very rough year for the country, the world, the state, the town, we should take this kind of an approach. And I have fostered that kind of approach this year, and I was partially successful with it, but not too successful, as you can see from the 7 referendums. But we need to work together, both groups, which is, both groups are a combination of many people, which I'll talk about, but we need to go down this slope and then get it approved in 1 or 2 referendums. And my view would be, on the 6th referendum for 2008-9, ask a question, the same questions you did this time, because it may fail. Just because we're going for a zero budget doesn't mean it'll automatically pass. So don't get complacent on this budget. There might be all the people that don't want these cuts to a zero mill rate and 0% may come out and vote against this budget. So that's a possibility. I don't think it's that likely, but it is possible that this budget could once again be turned down because people think we cut it too much on the education side or too little on the town side. So what we need to do is prepare for that now. So I would say, please ask the same questions on referendum number 6. And if you want to add a new question on there, what do you think we ought to do in 2010, 9 and 10? That, you know, up or down? That would be another interesting question. The whole thing is to get as much information as early in the process as possible so that you can go down the slope. The less information you get, if you don't ask any questions, then you're going up the slope, right? So now, I'm going to put up a little picture here of my favorite little thing. I used to say whiskey here, but I don't anymore. But these founders that we had in our town here that I had up on the board earlier, they used to get together a lot and talk about the business in the town, how to run the town. Do we need more schools? Do we need more roads? And a lot of that was done even outside the selectmen meetings with the townspeople. And they were closer to the townspeople because they were their employees, most of them. So they were very close to the needs of the town people. Also, they had to get the workers in the town to run their factories. So they were much closer than perhaps our selectmen are today to the needs of people. And I'm not picking on anybody, but I think some are better equipped than others, as you can see from this referendum thing. So what I always say to people is, get a bottle of wine. I used to say whiskey, but I don't do that anymore. And get a box of cigars. And get everybody in a room that are important to this process and meet at the beginning of the process here and meet at the monthly milestones along the way until the proposed budget goes to the town budget meeting. And hopefully by that time, be pretty much understanding each other, and we'll get it passed in the first or second time around. It should pass on the first time around. As you can see in the history, we have had some pass. And I don't know why, but we have had some pass the first time around. So, what I say here is communicating for success. Here's what I would do. I would set up a monthly meeting chaired by the town manager. And the intent of the meeting would be to update and educate each other. The purpose of the meeting will be to plan and agree the next budget, which will be either another reiteration of this one, or if it gets turned down on the 6th referendum, or the 2009-2010 budget. We should start working on that right away and work on it together as a team, and that way we won't have any big surprises at the first budget referendum. Our budget has to be to the selectmen by March 15th. We don't have much time to work on it, 3 months, so we got to move pretty fast here. But the purpose of the meeting will be to plan and agree the next budget. Conduct of the meeting would be professional but informal. So I say professionally informal. You don't want to make it too formal. But you have to agree the frequency of the meeting. I suggest monthly, could be every week if you want, or every other month. The more you talk, the more you deal with people, the easier it is to communicate. And there's an education process involved. The selectmen have to educate everybody on why they want this budget the way they want it to go, and the town meeting people have to educate the selectmen on why they want it to go their way. And then they have to try to work together on a solution in an amicable, communicative, positive way. Use positive thinking, lateral thinking, and system thinking. So those are the things, and maybe on a show I'll go over those 3 ways of thinking again for you. We've talked about them in the past. But now, who should chair the meeting? Definitely the town manager. He's the CEO of the town. He's in charge. He's got to pull all this together. And as he did this sixth referendum proposal that he did on Monday night, which was agreed to unanimously by the Board of Selectmen. Doesn't mean it'll be implemented unanimously, but, there's some work to be done there. Now, who should be the attendees of this group? The attendees should be the stakeholders, the town manager, chairman, 7 selectmen, stakeholders. The stakeholders should be somebody from the Board of Education, 1 person that can communicate with everybody, 1 person from each recognized political party. I would say that probably should be the head of the party. When they go to they have their own town meetings, and when they have their little, say, Republican town meeting, their representative can go to this meeting. And if that's the leader of the party, that's even better. So you have 1. So already we're up to 8 people: town manager, 7, a member of, each political party. I think I listed those somewhere, but maybe I can't see it here. Okay, but anyway, each political party would be, a recognized political party would be the Independents, the Republicans, the Democrats, and then you would have somebody from the Taxpayers Association right here, and you'd have an unaffiliated representative. Now, we don't have anybody who represents the unaffiliated people, but maybe unaffiliated people, 3,700 of them, the town manager can work with them to try to find out who can represent their interests. Now, some of their interests are represented by the Taxpayers Association. Some of their interests are represented by each recognized political party. And then maybe you need another representative from, like, the Green Party, or there's a whole bunch of people in town, 50 or 60 of them, that are not in any of these parties. They're in, like, the Green Party or the Working Man's Party or whatever other parties are on the list. But there are only about 50 or 60 people that are registered. There may be more people think that way, but that's how many are registered. So, again, I'll just repeat for you quickly. The town is divided into 3,700 plus or minus unaffiliated people, of which I am one, no matter who says that I'm a Republican or a Democrat or an independent. I am an unaffiliated voter, and I try to go with whoever I think has the best chance to merge this town together and make it successful. And I try to vote, not recommend anybody I think is going to be divisive. Right? So the Taxpayer Association, the parties represent the people. So you got a lot of cross-fertilization here. But 3,700 unaffiliated, around 1,700 Democrats, and around 1,400 Republicans. So the unaffiliated are equal to almost the other two put together. And then you got 50 or 60, somewhere in that neighborhood, of the Green Party people and people like that. So they're very important, all these people. So what you try to do is you try to get these people to come together in an informal meeting where they can discuss all these issues for the next budget, and and they can solve any problem. It could be a lot of education. I did notice in some of the selectmen meeting, some people stood up in the audience and said, I thought this number was that, but until I talked to Blaise Salerno, blah, blah, blah. But if we had these meetings with these people in there, then that would all get hashed out in these meetings that happen along the triangle here. So that's the education part of these meetings. The education part is done in here in these meetings. And that's the selectmen saying, oh, here's the reason we want to do that, and here's why we want this new road, and here's why we have to do this. And then taxpayer association say, no, we don't really agree with that. We'd rather see this happen instead, or that happen instead, or this. And then over the whole time period of about 3 months here, from March to the first referendum, our first town budget meeting, they should be able to hash all that out so that they're maybe not right on the barrelhead there, but they'll be a lot closer than 7 referendums away. And then when they have the first referendum, they can ask questions that that whole group, with the town manager being the leader of, would put together. So the questions would come from all of these people put together in these meetings, and they would go on to the referendum, and then that would give us a pretty good idea how to get it approved in the second referendum. And, you know, there'll be a much better chance. So what we need here is cooperation. We need it very bad. And my own view is that the best time, you're always going to have, you don't have really a choice on, I think the Taxpayers Association should make sure they appoint somebody who's communicative. I'm not saying they don't have them right now. The other is the educators should appoint somebody who's very communicative, can understand both sides of the issue, and then go back to their own groups and ask for their input to this group. And the same for each of the political party leaders. It should be very communicative. They should be chosen for that reason. And then when we vote for selectmen next year, I'm going to be throughout this year, as much as I can be on, I'm going to be saying we should vote for people that can work as a team and be communicative. And that usually happens if they come from the same sort of background, right? And we already have enough people that come from other backgrounds in the Taxpayer Association and the different parties, and in the unaffiliated group and all. So it's very important when you choose people for these positions that you choose people that you're sure, you're happy, are going to represent your needs, and in a way that they can get in and work with these people, hopefully with this either a bottle of wine or a glass of water and a cigar or a chewing gum or something, and they can all work together, maybe even have lunch that day when they do it preferably on a Saturday when they got time. Be relaxed, be prepared, and come to this meeting. So I think I'm getting pretty much near the end of my time. I'll be talking a lot about this year. So let's have the questions on the next referendum, whether it be the 208, 209, 7th one, or whether it be the first one for 09, 10. Let's get the town manager, encourage the town manager, the selectmen, and all these groups to get together once a month and work together towards the next budget, and pros and cons of the next budget, so that we're a lot closer and we work in harmony. And if we do that for 2 or 3 years in a row, we'll be a working team, just like a band or an orchestra. We won't have somebody beating on a drum at the wrong time in the wrong way, or blowing on the horn at the wrong time in the wrong way. We will be working together, we'll be getting there. And this is a very good measure for a guy like me, who's a mathematician and a statistician and all, to see. When you look at these numbers from year to year, and the number of referendums and the number of people who turn up and all, that's a lot of work to be done to get that thing right and to get it in shape. So I'm not disparaging anybody who's in charge now. You judge for yourself the way these people are. Don't write off anybody as a crackpot. Don't write anybody off as being an extremist. Try to understand their points of view, and then all the people that are participating need to understand that they all have to work together. There can't be any smirks. There can't be any accusations. There can't be any of that stuff that I mentioned earlier in the program. So let's try to do it, and it's hard to do. Matter of fact, around here it's much harder to do than it would be in most places. So with that, I want to say to you, have a Merry Christmas, have a Happy New Year, take it a little easy because we still got a long year or two of tough sledding here, and I personally think the next budget, the 2009-2010 budget, is going to be tougher than it was this year. So doesn't mean it can't be done, doesn't mean it can't work it out. But let's get the revenue in. Let's get this water and sewer down the corridor. Let's get going. And for people who say there's nobody buying houses now, well, I'll tell you, in a year or two they will be buying houses. I talked to a realtor in Torrington and told me he's already got 10 houses in the 400 to 500 area that are in the works. Right? Interest rates are going down on mortgages. People are refinancing. Things are happening. Now, would it be better to have 50 in the works? Yes. But it's not dead yet. It's going to come back. And let's be prepared with our water and sewer in, and let's get ready to go. Let's get moving, because it's going to take us 3 or 4 years to get any revenue from those developments. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Thank you.